Hi everyone, welcome back to the October edition of Loop Live. My name is Josh Gallagher, and off the back of our new white paper series, The Executive View, I'm really pleased to be back this month to unpack the now and next in media and marketing, and kick off some things that we think really need some executive sponsorship in our industry. And they're all impacted by big changes in society and technology. We're kind of at a lot of industry tipping points, and we'll see that today as we start to talk a little bit around social commerce with TikTok. But the rally cries that we normally have around getting into emerging platforms and new will not really save marketing, because what we find is that consumers are rapidly passing us by. Consumers, especially in this space, are looking for inspiration and adventure. They want to indulge in really exciting new consumer experiences, choices that they would make in the physical world that now they can make in the online world. They want to do that through trusted recommendations, and that really helps them take them on a purchase journey. What we know and what we're going to talk about a lot today is around how the importance of content in commerce. That quick content is really critical for us to achieve success in a quick commerce space. Why do we think that? Well, one of the big tipping points we're going to talk about is there's now as many people discovering products within the region via content from influencers as there are ads in the feed. They're expecting to be entertained within their shopping experience. We've partnered with TikTok on this because they're the ones that are taking swift advantage, and that's where we're seeing big momentum. They've got a new perspective on social selling. Entertainment is a really big driving force behind this platform, and they're now closing in as the #1 social commerce platform. The creators on their platform are key to the experience, and they're the ones turning online performances into performance media. So our big questions today, and the place where we always need executive sponsorship, is why are brands not taking on this big opportunity of social commerce? So to answer this, I am going to hand it over to some experts and some industry insiders. A scene-setting presentation, I'm going to include Zell, our resident expert from MediaCom, and Kenwood and Charlotte from TikTok to give a perspective. Following that, as usual with Loop Live, we're going to have a panel of experts, and this time led by myself. We're going to introduce Arthur from Inca to give a perspective on influencers and creators. And then I'm going to hand some questions to Abigail from Hogarth, because I really want to understand how we operationalize quick content. So our aim here is to give knowledge to succeed and take action. That's what we'll do today. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments box, or you can reach out to us after. So what we're going to do is let's start by understanding why many brands are talking about lifetime value, but not using things like social commerce to give value to their consumers. But first, let's set the scene so we're all in the loop.
Experiences for online shoppers have become shockingly similar. Whether you want to invest in luxury or buy fast fashion for a night out, you are greeted with an uninspiring response from brands. Many consumers are left disappointed. 41% want entertaining shopping experiences from demand to delivery. Brands need to rethink the feed. Just as many people from APAC discover products from influencer content as they do from ads in the social feed, there is a new art to online sales, and consumers demand that brands put shoppertainment at the core. Social sellers are creating content at the speed of culture, turning online performances into performance media.
Hi everyone, I'm Juliana Unkovic. I'm a strategy director here at MediaCom in Singapore. So there are almost $2,900 trillion spent in online sales in APAC last year. That is an enormous number and a huge opportunity for brands in this region. However, most of us are really failing to reach this opportunity appropriately. What you can see from this example on screen is that whether you're wanting to spend $400 or $40 to buy headphones, your brand experience here is exactly the same. Now, if you're spending that $400, you're probably going to be wanting a little bit more. Commerce, with its really constrained canvas, has killed creativity, and brands are becoming invisible in this part of the consumer journey. So how have we got here? Social has become a mainstream platform, and in APAC, people are spending almost 20% of their waking hours with social media. And of course, this is much higher with Gen Z audiences. Almost 20% of people in this region claim to be using more than 11 social media platforms. The size and scale of social media has now reached a tipping point where it's had a marked impact on how consumers are shopping online. The challenge with using social is that it moves incredibly quickly. Now, this is great because it enables a really fast path to purchase, but it can be really tough for advertisers because our communications can get flicked through extremely quickly. Making content that is compelling for social requires the same emotional approach that we might expect to see, or the effort that we put into creating a really beautiful TV campaign. But it must be fast enough to keep up with the environment. Unfortunately, most brands are still not able to deliver on this expectation. The nature of online shoppers has also really changed. Consumer needs have matured, and so must brands' approach to commerce online. No longer are customers flocking to online spaces just for a great deal. They're online seeking inspiration and discovery. And as Josh said, there are now as many people discovering products via influencers as there are from ads in the feed. The feed is now being replaced by a completely different set of retail experiences that use entertainment and emotion to create demand. 41% of consumers want something funny or entertainment as part of their shopping experience online. And there is a real art to delivering this if you're an advertiser. With social giving consumers greater choice and control over the content they're consuming, a shift to experiential engagement and emotional connection is needed to match consumer needs. Emotional demand spaces are more than just attaining a given need. They're about creating emotional connections in a way that's engaging, entertainment, and sparks joy. For example, if I were to start looking for a holiday online, it would be very easy for an advertiser to find data that understood that I am a married woman with a child and start serving me ads that direct me to a package holiday in Bali. What's missing as part of this response is how I feel about that. And if you know me, you know that this kind of holiday isn't far from ideal. What I want to see is beautiful, inspiring food journeys, amazing beaches. I want to be excited for, some kind of vacation adventure, not just serve something that's easy and convenient at a good price. Consumers are really looking for inspiration and adventure. We want to indulge in exciting new choices and also look for trusted recommendations that can help drive them on this journey. TikTok are leading the charge in this space, and I'm now going to hand over to Kentwood, who's going to talk you through how they're doing this.
Thanks, Zell. Good to meet you all and see some familiar faces. Again, my name is Kenward. I work on the WPP APAC business here at TikTok. And I want to start by saying our company's mission literally includes two words. We often like to refer to ourselves as the last sunny corner of the internet. But the two key words in our manifesto that you can see on screen right now are creativity and joy. Our purpose is to empower our communities and brands to entertain, to educate, to inspire with a spirit of realness and relatability, which ultimately translates into real impact for businesses. Hopefully, a lot of you guys online here have heard of hashtag TikTok made me buy it. And some of you may have already bought products from that particular hashtag. So I'm going to provide you a real life example of this hashtag in action. It's late at night and I'm scrolling through TikTok and I see these mouth-watering pastries amazingly shot appear on my For You page. I mean, just look at those pastries on the right-hand side. So I click into their account. Turns out they are from a local Singapore vegan bakery called Bakey Vakey. This is real. Definitely do check them out if you're based in Singapore. And having a fussy 6-year-old son whose idea of a snack is a donut, I obviously need to follow this particular account. Fast forward a couple days later, when I'm on TikTok again, I see Bakey Vakey pop up on my For You feed under the following tab. And I decide to buy a couple of these earth-smashing, wonderful loaves for breakfast, which are then delivered the next day. While I don't actively create often on TikTok, which I'm sure most of you on this call who do have TikTok are in the same boat. What I do is share some of these good finds and other gems to people who I think would appreciate them also. So with a couple taps within the TikTok app, I send out that video from Bakey Vakey through to my friends on WhatsApp. That is essentially the infinity loop you see on the left-hand side here. I discovered something, I looked for more information, I bought it, I tried it, and then now I'm sharing that experience with friends. And that loop starts over with each one of them. And that is obviously one example of how TikTok is collapsing the funnel. But in categories like health and beauty, you see hashtag TikTok made me buy it radically reshaping the entire consumer journey. Something we've also detailed in our co-authored paper with BCG that we released lately is the fact that there are a lot of people like me out there, and you, I'm sure, people who are looking for emotional connections, like Zell had mentioned, or emotional demands in their shopping experiences. They want to be inspired, they want to be indulged, or they're looking for recommendations. And looking at another stock photo of a product doesn't really cut it. They want to be entertained, which is where shoppertainment comes in. Simply put, it's defined as content-driven commerce that seeks to entertain and educate first, which is the core of the TikTok platform. The shopping experience is then delivered through consumers, through culture and commerce, through a combination of content to create highly immersive shopping experiences. Then that can be delivered through brands, creators, videos, live streaming, or online and physical stores. Any guesses on how much shoppertainment is expected to be by 2025? If anybody answered $1 trillion, that is absolutely correct. The shoppertainment opportunity in APAC currently is around $500 billion, but it's projected to be over 1 trillion by 2025. This is a huge opportunity for marketing leaders and brands that are willing to commit to the fast-growing entertainment-first shopping and capture consumers in those emotional demand spaces today. But there are some local nuances, of course, and consumer sentiments will impact how shoppertainment is adopted and call for brands to tailor their marketing strategy suitably. Let's take a look at some of these examples. Indonesians have a strong preference for live format content, live format entertainment through live streaming, real-time interactions. Vietnamese have seen a lot of enjoyment in product demonstrations on our particular platform. Meanwhile, South Koreans demonstrate a particular appetite for comedy, dance, songs, entertainment, as well as content which embraces popular celebrity and K-drama culture, and so on and so forth. So for each one of these markets, there are different adaptations required for what is actually deemed as shoppertainment. To deep dive into how that actually translates and works for brands, I want to introduce you to Charlotte from our business marketing team.
You definitely need to WhatsApp me the address of the bakery that you discovered. I'm so keen to try that out this weekend. Right. Thank you for sharing the last slide. I think it's very interesting to see how shoppertainment content actually differs market by market, although the common feature is they all put entertainment at the core of commerce. So why do we put so much emphasis on creating the right shoppertainment content that actually resonate with your local consumers? It's because with the right content, the entertaining content, brands can actually build a very genuine emotional connections with your customers and to actually be embraced and loved by the community. How good is that? And our stats from our studies have proved the same. So if you take a look at our numbers over here, so over 70% of the users, when the surveys, they say they couldn't tell that this is the advertising content because the branded content blends in with the rest of the creative content and with the rest of user-generated content they love. So it's easier for them to take in information. It's easier for them to form a true, genuine connections with the content creator, which is our brands in this scenario. And similarly, 73% of TikTok users also say that they feel a deeper connection with brands on TikTok than anywhere else. And we believe that's because brands over here, they tend to show up more of the authentic, real, and interesting, entertaining side of them. One of my personal favorite example is one that's showing on the top right corner from McDonald's. As you could tell, it's a very innovative and interesting way of eating the ice cream. It's actually started by an Indonesian creator who discovered this new way of eating ice cream, and it posted on TikTok. And soon after, the whole Indonesian community went to try it out. And then McDonald's, the brand in Thailand, discovered this trend in Indonesia, and they're like, we can definitely tap into this trend. So that's what they did. They have worked with the creators and launched a similar campaign on TikTok for their Thailand consumers and community to discover that. And no doubt, it actually went viral, and they drove like really amazing footfall and sales revenue increase. So with that, let's move on to the next slide. I think with what Ken and Zale has shared before, the why and what parts are pretty clear. So maybe we can move on and talk a little bit about the how. So when we say entertaining content or entertaining creative, it may sound a little bit vague. What do you actually mean by it's entertaining or not? So that's why we asked the Boston Consulting Group to help us do some research and try to summarize the 5 most critical features that make that content and make the creative entertaining. And here you see on the first row are the 5. So to start with, definitely the good storytelling. And that's if you could embed some of the knowledge sharing in it or some useful tips, consumers do appreciate that. And for the second feature is for the format-wise. We see that video first is loved by the folks, and also so on, because it helps you to engage some more senses. And the third one is don't force decisions. It's kind of counterintuitive, and isn't it? But because our ultimate goal is to sell our products and solutions and services. But it's pretty interesting from our survey, and it shows that our APAC consumers, they are mature. They have seen the previous brand's marketing strategies and techniques for these many years, and it's really hard to win their hearts anymore just by trying to sell to them and push them to take actions. But instead, a soft approach, a more entertaining approach actually performs much better. And our fourth feature is to be real and authentic. This probably doesn't come across as a surprise. You and I will appreciate the same thing, because our consumers really, they have had enough of over-polished content, and it's really the time for them. They crave something so real and new and just genuine, like from the communities and from folks they trust. And that links nicely to our last feature, which is we call like trends and recommendation. So we always encourage brands to try to leverage some existing culture trends, tap into them, or even better, create some of them, just like the McDonald's ice cream, that example we have just seen. So the trend started organically by the community, and then brands saw it, and brands put a booster behind it and went viral, but not just on TikTok. It started on TikTok, but it doesn't stop on TikTok. It flows to other platforms, and those are free organic reach that you just earned yourself. And with that, now we know how to produce the creative and how to make the creatives entertaining. And here is how we can best structure an annual plan for our content framework. It always takes some like test and learn to do the content framework planning, but here we have a shop content framework that we work out this one, and we hope that could offer you kind of a shortcut. We're calling it a shop framework because it's like it's the abbreviation of this SHOP, which stands for season, habit, opportunity, and promotion. And we encourage brands to probably first try to flesh out the 2 to 3 biggest content pillar for you for this new coming year, and then map them accordingly to the various brand moments. And these brand moments, they could be seasonal, and they could just be like everyday habitual, or it could be opportunistic, and based on the current existing trend. And last but not least, have your big promotion product launches time over there. And in this manner, you can create multiple consistent creatives that engage users through a very entertaining approach. And over here, we just listed an example that we saw from Levi's, who have leveraged the shop framework and really brought their 3 content pillars to life. That was a really good example we've seen. Right, and with that, we are coming to the very last slide of the presentation. Before we move on to an exciting panel, allow me to share like 4 key takeaways that could be useful. And we call it the 4 C's. First up is consumers, they have functional needs and emotional needs, as we talked before. And as brands, we really need to start work on how to appeal to our customers across all their needs, especially emotional ones. And second part, shoppertainment is a $1 trillion opportunity just for APAC. That takes about 30% of the total e-commerce size. It's huge, right? And we don't want to miss out on that. And at the heart, it's really the power of entertainment. And connect your customers with relevant campaigns that adopt shoppertainment to truly win their heart and minds and wallets. And thirdly, to do so, always try to remember to craft your content approach by leading with entertainment. This will help you better foster emotional connections that power purchases. And lastly, as TikTok continue to build and evolve our solutions to drive shoppertainment, we're here to support, and we're here to be excited to work with you to grow together and encourage brands to try to partner with us and try us out as a key marketing channel to help you test and learn, to help you build your shoppertainment strategy, and to help you to test out the latest innovation to build a delightful experience for your customers that sell. All right, let's do our job. Let's bring the fun back to shopping. And with that, I'll pass it over to Josh for a really exciting panel.
Cool. Thank you. So yes, I'm gonna introduce the panel now. There's obviously a lot of things that have changed within social commerce and with the social environments that we need to take into account. Scale is massive now on these platforms. The ability to then use that scale not only to entertain people, but to turn that into performance media, I think is really interesting. I think as Charlotte mentioned, people have matured now. They expect a lot more from their commerce and their shopping experience online. It's not just about click and collect or make that action based on convenience and cost. There is a bigger expectation on the way that we shop online that's really important. And that expectation is really fed by content. It's fed by the people that create content. It's fed by the brands and the platforms that enable that content for people as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce Abigail and Arthur into the panel today to talk about some of those things. We're going to talk about content because I think the actual operationalization of that content is more difficult than it sounds. It's an easy thing to say, we need awesome content. Actually getting it out there and getting everyone kind of working around it is something that we need to talk about. And also Arthur kind of controls the biggest variable sometimes within this shopping experience, which is influencer. We're all used to being really controlled on the way that we do commerce, but adding in an element that's really important now, but needs a lot of thought and needs expertise is really important. So let me kick it off. I'll introduce Abigail from Hogarth. Hogarth is an effective place to kind of get content moving and content operationalized. Abigail's the content strategy lead there. So I'm really interested firstly in her opinion on a few things. The big thing that I've kind of spoken about is that what we've heard a lot around social and now social commerce is that brands are going to need lots of different assets. Zell spoke about it kind of moving at the pace of culture and a new speed. So there's differentiated content assets to support those new content availabilities. So I'd like to kind of ask you, Abigail, how do you kind of observe brands adapting their approach to content production now in this kind of new world, moving from building brands in big TV ads to now being able to build brands in different areas? And what's your advice on kind of how we need to shift and how agencies and clients also need to shift the way that they work?
Yeah, for sure. So I think what's really interesting right now is what we're calling it a content gap divide of sorts. So where marketers and brands have to learn to do more with less. So increasingly, I think lots of consumers are consuming so much content across so many different touch points. What's happening on the production end of how we create content at the same time is that the volume and the variety and the quality that we have to create is continuously climbing as well. So there's kind of like a need for different brands to kind of change their approach from just doing one type of content for one type of touch point into looking into scaling it across a larger content production to perhaps, reduce costs across producing different types of assets. You could even reduce content production time through streamlining different automated solutions, which are some of the different solutions we've been working with our clients with as well. And I think what's really interesting is we've been trying to help our clients to reimagine the kind of content that they've been creating and seeing how it can be sliced and spliced into many different variety to be used across multiple channels, just to keep up with the speed of where consumers are consuming the content as well. So essentially, I think to answer your second question on how any advice where brands can keep up with this shift is, I think brands need to start to keep up with having new ways of working, perhaps having more agile and collaborative organizational models. So for example, thinking of something like a newsroom kind of function where you have cross-functional teams, for example, in Hogaf, where the planners, the creatives, and the production all sit together, where we work together on a brief. There is no siloed departments. And another way is also to tap on open source creativity as well. So there's no point for us to hold on to all the content creation as one agency, but to tap on the larger creators economy, for example. And yeah, essentially to start small and just to try and keep experimenting and see how you go.
Cool. So I've got a quick follow-up, because you mentioned like different content for different platforms, and that's really important. We're moving into kind of holiday season, we're moving into mega sales, and clients are expecting kind of cost per sale to kind of increase, and the actual movement of product now. How do we balance kind of that more performance aspect of commerce with some of the branding and shop attainment things? Can they all be done in the same bit of communication, or is that something that we need to manage within channel as well?
I think for sure is to also obviously first look at the kind of objective you're trying to achieve at the same time, and also looking into how can you then best make use of the content that you've already created. So be like recycling and slicing live stream content into short shoppable videos on social media, for example. So I think one of the great brands that have done it was United Benetton, I think, where they did their live show on their runway and took the entire live stream and sliced it into a shoppable YouTube ad, for example. So it's all about learning to look into how you can tap on creativity to reuse your content, for example. And also, I think one of the very important things is also to learn to plan early, and also to plan for more variety as well. So I think the more storytelling approaches that you have, and you are more likely to convert your audiences at the same time as well. And I think in terms of creativity and simplicity too, I think it's really important to look into that and see how they can both coexist. How you could, for example, lean on templates that could help you to stay true to your brand while producing a variety of different creative touch points and entertaining content that can actually reduce ad fatigue. Because I think that's the last thing you want to have when it comes to shop attainment as well. But yeah.
Cool. Arthur, got a question for you,
Sure.
kind of pertaining to this. I mean, you can kind of comment on the same question, or I'll put you on the spot. But you're an important, as I said at the front, you're an important part of this puzzle, bringing in creators, bringing in influencers that are kind of like when you go shopping with your friends. They're the ones that kind of shift you into a new place, buying a certain shirt or not buying a certain bit of fashion, or your wife helping you out buy your car or making the decision on those kinds of things.
That's
How do you
obvious.
see your role within that? I mean, the influencer part is really important, but it's one part of a huge ecosystem that we're now managing across marketing and media agencies as well. How do you see the kind of interaction work really well?
I think, yeah, it's quite important to kind of like maybe step back and see how all the industry and the key stakeholders have matured, especially through this part of the world and over the last 3-4 years. I think initially, a couple of years ago, if you ask like who wants to work with influencers, it will have been, an extension of traditional PR, someone who's going to endorse a product or, talk about my brand online. And rightly so at the time, it was mainly around upper funnel type of metrics, raising awareness and consideration perhaps of product and solutions. But the purchase element was happening elsewhere, and it wasn't often connected. But obviously, the pandemic happened. The platforms, TikTok, Meta, just to name those, and YouTube, have clearly transformed the way we consume those media. I mean, you went through some report and the numbers in terms of how much time we're spending on those platforms and what we do on those platforms, and especially true amongst the Gen Zs and perhaps the youngest amongst us, is we use those social platforms as a search engine, right? You look for product or inspiration, you will go there. So it's definitely a clear move from those platforms, and influencers play a key part of it. We've seen in many studies showing that user-generated content or KOL-generated content often drives a higher preference and attention than standard ads. And that's one of the reasons as well, is you as a user, you will give consent or you will actively follow an influencer because you're interested in whatever they have to say or the niche topic or whatever they want to say. So by default, you're going to pay more attention to it rather than being pushed an ad. So I think the role of influencers has evolved. The platforms and the way they're making it easier for influencers to monetize the services, and also us as a marketeers and also the brands to get better return on ad spend on that. So, influencers have started to promote the product, drive traffic to brand.com and obviously marketplaces. And this is kind of like playing a key part in any media plan now, where influencers are at the core. Obviously, we talk about creatives with Abigail in terms of why and how creative is one of the key elements of driving purchase and one of the key elements in making a campaign successful. So I think we've seen that shift from platforms, from marketeers, and from brands as well, of how better to work with influencers and drive better performance as well.
Yeah, so we're kind of used to working with influencers in one particular way at the moment. That kind of big engaging thing that we've been used to be doing. How do brands kind of start to approach using them for more performance campaigns, or kind of some of those lower funnel objectives that we're kind of moving into at this part of the year with mega sales and the like?
Absolutely, and something that in Southeast Asia is absolutely true, which has been booming, is the live commerce and live streaming, right? It kind of like replaced this old QVC that we used to have on TV. I think you have to think of live commerce and live streaming as having someone being your online sales representative, the same way you will have a salesperson in your brick and mortar shop. Which is quite amazing. When you think of those big festivals like the mega sales days, of course, you think about having those one-off tactical live stream on that day. But actually, we have many brands who have daily live streaming and often more than one live streaming a day, promoting different products, literally being live pretty much 24/7. And what is important is, a content creators or an influencers might not be a good seller. So there is one thing that it is important is when you want to promote lower funnel, and especially for live streaming, you need to think of more, and I apologize, I'm throwing another abbreviation here, is a KOS, or key opinion seller. So someone who will be good, who has the right personality and the enthusiasm to be live for maybe an hour or two and talk about your product with obviously a lot of passion and convince people who are watching to buy your product. So, you need to find the right influencers, the right key opinion sellers. You need to look at the personality, the enthusiasm, but obviously the relevancy into that specific space, because someone who might be selling a beauty product might not be relevant, of course, for, technology product. And something else as well is we're looking at is the performance. So, okay, someone is good at talking, someone is good at promoting a product, but is that person selling? So we obviously have access to the right set of data, working closely with the likes of TikTok or the marketplaces to look at metrics such as the GMV and see, how this specific individual is shifting product. So yeah, live streaming, definitely pay attention to who are you working with. Think of the logistic as well, because, it might be easy and you think everyone can do live streaming on the phone, but actually you need the right lighting, the setup, the right internet connectivity, the light. And often we can do as well live streaming on multiple and broadcasting into multiple platforms. So all the marketplaces and platforms like TikTok. So our role as an agency is to support the brands in why live streaming is an important part of their strategy. It accelerates the shop attraction, it improved their shop followers, it improved the number of product views and obviously product to cart and conversions. But it also acts as an online sales representative. But don't underestimate the logistic that goes beyond it. So live streaming, definitely something to look for. And more brands, not just beauty and product, beauty and fashion categories are jumping on the wagon. And now we have live streaming on pretty much every single categories and verticals.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that because I think it's a really interesting point, and maybe Abigail, you'll have some perspective on it as well, around how we work really closely with influencers. I think it's one thing to kind of select the right influencer that's great for branding versus one who's great for selling, getting all the setups right. But actually, whose responsibility is it to start to work with them? If they are a sales representative, they need to really know your product. Like if you had a sales representative in a physical shop, you would take them through training and spend a lot of time with them. How does that work, and how does that need to kind of play into things like lead times and who actually works with them? I think there's some things that kind of go unchecked in terms of what we need to do to kind of actually set up more sales-driven areas as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a really interesting question. I think when it comes to using influencers in terms of selling, for us at the HOGAF side of things, when we actually work with both the creators and as well as the clients, what we've learned and helped us to save lots of pain on both sides as well is to have a form of we call it like a guardrail. So obviously, like Arthur once said, you have to first look into whether the seller is even the right person for your brand. Doesn't matter if they're a great seller, but if they are not right for the brand, then they are probably not the right person to sell your services or products to your consumers as well. So once you've identified the right fit for your brand, then it's all about making sure that you have a key set of almost like requirements as to how to guide your influencer to creating the kind of work that is best aligned with your objective as well. Because what we've learned also with a couple of our clients, when you do let the influencers go rogue, you end up with a little bit something that's not what exactly you envisioned for. It's ended like wasted time, wasted money. But at the same time, if you overly restrict your influencer into such defined guardrails that you might as well just create your own ad. You don't really need the influencer at all to put your own spin of magic to convince the audience. So it's really quite a delicate balance of what's good for the brand and what is the magic of your influencer as well. And then putting it together and working with the creative or production agency to make really entertaining and really shoppable kind of content that both your consumers and your brand can align on as well. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add on, I think you perfectly summarize it. Is when we're working with influencers, when a brand works with influencers or a seller, you're not just borrowing their audiences, right? I think it's very important that you're kind of like tapping into their creativity and personality to deliver the right message. So providing them a brief, of course, is important, but giving them a bit of freedom within boundaries, of course, on how to promote the brand. And to your point about, we need, in part of the selection, you have all the specific metrics in terms of previous engagement, previous numbers of followers, and all those metrics that are available that will give you one side of the coin. But the second aspect is obviously you need to decipher and find the passion. We were talking earlier about the entertainment element, the passion and the emotional connection. So when we brief and when we select influencers, they need to be relevant within the specific category of the brand. So they need to be knowledgeable already about a specific product, or they need to have a passion to talk about a product. They might not be the expert, especially if you promote very high-end and technology or high-end product with a lot of specificities, but they need someone to provide you at least talk about the product, provide you the first level of information that you will need. And don't forget as well, as within the live streaming element, you also have the chat, so you can ask questions and people from the brands can also be part of that chat and answers perhaps some very specific questions that an influencers or key opinion sellers might not know. But it's kind of like this combination of the passion, the education, and most importantly online is the entertainment. So make me buy a product that maybe I don't need. I think that's the killer.
Awesome, good tips. So I think we've kind of got this all sorted now. It sounds super easy, and we have a kind of an ability as an industry to kind of pass that by and go, okay, well, what's next? What's going to happen? What's going to happen next year in Q4? It's time to kind of predict trends for the year. So let's assume that all brands have got it right. That they're all doing this really well, and social commerce is part of what they do from a day-to-day perspective. What does the next year look like? What does the next 24 months look like from a social commerce and a creative perspective? And what's kind of the ideal state that we kind of get to in the next year or so? Arthur, I'll start with you.
Right. I think, and promise I'm not going to talk about metaverse, even though maybe a lot to say about it. But I think, no, joke aside, I think we can, metaverse will definitely be part of it. but we still don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly in which shape and form, but I think experimental. It's important for brands to be experimental online. Work with niche audiences. I mean, working with influencers and live streaming or commerce will provide you a huge amount of data that you will be able to use to finesse your strategy. Be experimental. Be okay to learn and experiment if this type of influencers work well, or this type of sellers work well, or these platforms work well. And second aspect is also finding the synergies between the other paid media and paid social. What we're seeing maybe too much right now is influencers and content might still be a silo. It could be a tactical in terms of like, oh, well, let's do this. But then often the paid social or the paid media that you have are not always connected. And as Abigail was mentioning about the importance of content, nothing prevents you to work with content creators for them to provide great content, which we know by stat and a lot of studies that it's usually better than standard ads. Repurpose that content, use it on paid social, use it on paid media. And the great example you were giving about that live streaming breakdown into different videos and making it shoppable, I think that's definitely something that we should see more, and we will see more, driven by efficiencies, but also from a cost perspective. Influencers are able to create good quality content, often in a fast turnaround and in a cost-effective way as well. So a better integration into the planning, I would say, we should see more in the next 12, 24 months for sure.
Anything to add on, Abigail?
Yeah. So building on to Arthur's point, I think on my end, I think it's a really cool point that you mentioned all about experimenting as well. On my end, I wanted to add, I think it's going to move towards a little bit more experiential as well. So I guess shoppertainment is no longer just so transactional in nature, where you just slap on a $5 for $5 kind of ad on different touch point and platforms. You start to have to build in lots of different elements that you traditionally get in big TVCs, for example. So like storytelling becomes as important in shoppertainment as well. And it's no longer just about buying something. It's all about having a good time. It's all about disrupting the monotony of endless doom scrolling to find something that really is really entertaining and catches their eye, and inject some new fun into shopping experience. I think the way we shop is so prime for disruption right now. There's so many different ways you can inject so much fun, so much entertainment, so much data at your fingertips for us marketeers as well. Because with shoppertainment, you're no longer just purchasing a product. You actually get a whole history of the item, the processes behind it. You get personal connection to the seller, in fact, as well, with the influencer being the face for the brand, for example. And you get lots of benefit of true to life demonstration and visuals. So it's become such a rich portal, like touch point for you to build greater affinity to your product. It gives you much more interesting things to say when you're using it as well. So definitely, I think it's going to get a lot more experiential in nature, and it's going to definitely change the way we buy and sell. And eventually, even the way I think we unwind that I came across this really interesting statistic where creator-driven TikTok actually generated 2 times more time spent on it than versus on Netflix in 2021. So maybe, who knows, the future. I'm just going to stick it out there. In the next 24 months, we're going to watch shoppable ads for the new TikTok instead of just watching the series of Lord of the Rings or something.
Well, I think that's a good one to leave it on. The new home shopping network will be the kind of the entertainment of the future. But I think I will leave it there. I think those points are really important. I think what we need to do as we shift to entertainment-driven commerce is just act like a brand. I think too much in the past with commerce, we've acted in different ways based on platform requirements. These new social platforms give us the ability as brand kind of custodians to encourage everyone to act like a brand, be emotional, be the right kind of emotion for your brand. And when you're going to test in a way that you can measure and that you can improve and do it again, the same way that we do with all of our other media channels and all of our other experiences. So with that, I'm coming to the end. I want to thank everyone that's tuned in today to Loop Live, but also especially want to thank Arthur and Abigail for a great panel discussion, and also Zell,